In this lesson, we are going to create text. We're going to add filters to the text. We're then going to fade the text in and out using a classic tween. We're also going to change its tint. In addition, we're going to add sound. We're going to fade the sound in and out. And I'm going to review how to insert a stop action. Let's get started. Open up your snowman movie. If you recall, we created a classic tween to make our hat fly around the stage. We used a motion tween in order to move and rotate the snowballs. Let's add a new layer. Click the layer at the top. If by chance you forgot to click the correct layer and you insert a new layer, notice how the layer cuts before the guide? You don't want that. So make sure that you move the layer up above the guide. Name your layer, and I'm going to call it text. Click on the empty keyframe in frame 1. Go to your text tool. Notice how under the character group you can pick your font, pick your size, pick your color. You can even adjust your letter spacing. That's the spacing between the letters. Your alignment is found in your paragraph group. So I'm going to simply draw a box and type, "It's cold." Now, point to the box so you see the blue line around the box, around your text. I'm going to put my text inside my snow. Let's add filters. Filters are also located in Properties. Look at the bottom. Your filters will appear in this gray space. To add a filter, take a look at that first icon in the bottom left corner of this window. It says Add Filter. Notice how it looks very similar to the Add a New Layer. Click on Add Filter and look at all the filters available to you. Let's enable the drop shadow. There's my drop shadow. Notice how it's black? You have the ability to change your parameters now in your property window under Filters. So I can change the angle, the strength, the blur. I'm going to change my color. So I'm going to pick more of a gray, a little bit lighter type of a filter. Let's go ahead and add another filter. So I'm going to add another one. Let's try that bevel. Now there's a gradient bevel and a regular bevel. Play with them. See which ones you like. That looks pretty nice. I like my bevel. Take a look at all the different parameters available to you here. Let's add another one. So you can continue to add. I'm going to put on a glow. Ooh, that red is a little bit harsh, but I can leave that or just change it to yet another color. And if I don't like that, to remove a filter, you simply select the filter by clicking on the gray line that names it. And look at that trash can right at the bottom. You can just delete that filter and it's gone. In addition, if you look at the bottom of the filter properties, you see the eyeball. If you wanted to hide the filter because it's getting in the way while you're working, you can click on it and now it's gone. Go back, click on the drop shadow and enable it. It works like a toggle. So I have to select it again and I can, whoops, I just got rid of both of them. Let's put them back in. Add that. Go back to my bevel, click on it, and show that. So you can hide them so they don't see them if you want to make a comparison. So filters can really make your text look really cool. So we have now applied filters to our text. Let's now fade this text in and then fade it out during this 2-second video. Notice how I know how long it is? If I click at the end of my animation, at the bottom of my timeline, it tells me how long I have, which is 2 seconds. Now, we want to fade this in. To fade this in, you create a classic tween. To create a classic tween, this must be a symbol. So, we have to convert this text to a symbol. In order to convert, do you remember the F8 key? F8. Here my pop-up window appears. I'm going to call it, I'll just call it cold. And it's going to be a graphic symbol. Remember your options. You can have a movie clip or a button or a graphic. Movie clips are for animations, something that's going to continue on and on and on, such as a beating heart. This isn't a button, it's not interactive, so we're using graphic. And I like my registration point to be in the center. Hit OK. You're going to notice it is now inside my library along with my hat and my snowball. So I am ready to fade this in. My cursor, my keyframe in frame 1 is at 100%. I want to copy that keyframe, and let's say we're going to have this fade in over a half a second. With our frame rate being 24 frames per second, that means I'm going to go to frame 12. Go to frame 12, I want to copy the contents of frame 1 into frame 12. Insert a keyframe, F6. My opacity here is 100%. Go to your property window. Notice that you have to click on the object, and now you see color effects in the property window. So I clicked on my symbol on the stage, and now I can see my color effects. This is, we're going to play with something called the alpha. So alpha deals with opacity. If you've had a Photoshop class, you know about the alpha channel. So we're going to change the alpha not at this keyframe, but our first keyframe. We want it to fade into 100%. We want to make the keyframe in frame 1 the opacity 0. So click on keyframe 1 in the text channel. Click on your symbol. Notice the color effects. Under style, we're going to change that style to alpha and bring your alpha down to 0. It disappeared. In order for the actual fade in to take place, we have to add our classic tween. So we're going to create our classic tween, and now when I play my movie, do you see that the text fades in? There it goes. It fades in pretty quick because it's a half a second, but you can see it fade in. We want to now fade this baby out. So here's my text in frame 12. I'm going to go 12 from the back. And I'm going to insert a keyframe. Again, I want to copy the contents from the prior keyframe, so I hit F6. My opacity is 100%. I'm going to begin my fade out here. Position your cursor at the end in the last frame. F6 one more time. So I'm dealing with keyframes and I'm copying the content from the prior keyframe. However, at this point, I want to fade out. So I have to click on my object, and this is the key. Notice how I don't see my effects here? Click on the object. Now I do. Go back to my alpha and make sure the alpha is 0. In order to see the actual fade take place, you have to turn on your classic tween. So create a classic tween. When we play our video, it fades in and it fades out. So we have now created a classic tween fading in and fading out. One more thing I want to show you under these color effects, and it's playing with tint. So position your cursor between the second and third keyframe. One more time, F6, insert a keyframe. At this point, we're going to change the color. Click on the text, the object, the symbol. There's my color effects. So under color effects, alpha relates to the opacity. You could play with the brightness. We're going to tint. The reason why I like tint is I can choose yet a different color. So go ahead and choose a color that you would like it to change to. But notice that when you're in tint, do you see how you see 56%? That relates to opacity. So if you want this to get a little bit darker, take a look at it. See how it could be a slight change? So you can play with your tint. You can play with your reds and your greens and your blues. All right. So you can adjust your tint and the opacity of the tint. Now, a shortcut. I need to turn classic tween here and here. So in order to do it between both in one swell swoop, all I have to do is highlight some frames around this middle keyframe. So I have some space between my first, my space in my second. Now when I turn the classic tween on, whoops, let me do that again. If I highlight between these two spaces and right click, when I create the classic tween, it does both at the same time. So just wanted to show you that. Now, when I play my video, take a watch, it fades in, change colors, and change back and fade out. Remember that if you want your fade out to go a little bit quicker, or you want to move any of these keyframes, click once, then click a second time, hold and drag, and you can adjust the location of your keyframes. So again, click once, click again, hold and drag, so you can move your keyframes and make those adjustments for you. All right, so here I go, Control Enter, and this is what I have created so far. It's cold. And this is looping, but notice my text and the effects. Well, let's add some sound. All right, I've got a share folder that has a bunch of wave sounds. It's a bunch of sound effects. To import a sound, we're going to import it to our library. So I'm going to go to File, and I'm going to import. But more specifically, import to library, not to the stage. It prepares for the import, and I'm going to navigate now, when the window opens, to my share folder. In my share folder, go to 127 Katsakos, and you're going to notice a Waves folder. This contains sound effects. Open up the Waves folder. Notice that I have these broken down by category, and you can use these when you're creating your own animation. Let's go to nature, because I'm looking from some howling cold wind. And I'm going to use, there's two of them here. So feel free to listen, but right now I'm going to take the Howling W. Howling W2 is a longer sound file. But when you get a chance, go through and take a look at all the sound files available for your use. I'm going to take Howling W, and when I hit open, notice that it comes right into my library. All right, let me lock my layer. I'm going to lock this layer too, because I don't want to accidentally make mistakes. Insert a new layer. Sound wants to go on its own layer. So I'm going to double click and name this layer Sound. In order to put the sound into your movie, you have your cursor selected. In frame 1 of that channel, drag and drop sound onto the stage. Ta-da! There's your sound. But when I play my movie, Control Enter, notice that the sound really doesn't fade in nice. It just kind of throws it right out there. We want to now play with our sound. You can manually fade this sound in and fade it out. How? Property window. Click on the sound layer and notice that you have a sound grouping. It shows you the name of your sounds, and if you had multiple sounds in your library, you'd always be able to change the sound here. We're going into Effect. Notice it says None. I want to fade this baby in, so I can go to Fade In. I could also fade in the right channel or the left channel, but I'm going to just do a fade in. But that will fade in the sound at the beginning. Hit the Enter key. Whoops. It doesn't fade it out. So we're going to play with our video to fade it out. To do that, notice the pencil next to the effects. It is the pencil next to the effects that allows you to edit. When I click on the pencil, notice I can actually see the manual fade in. If you wanted to fade this in at a faster rate, you can adjust this. These boxes are easily adjustable. So you can see this visually. If I click on this box and I move backwards, and let's say I now fade this in a half a second. Go to the end of the movie. There's no boxes here to adjust. we can make those boxes. Look at the line at the top. I'm going to click once. Oh, got a box. I'm going to click again. Now this time, notice that I want this to sync up with my movie. So I'm actually going to fade this right just before the 2-second mark. I'm going to click. Now, in order to fade, I have 2 boxes. I can simply drag this box down. And I want that to fade out real fast. So I'm moving my boxes back. How fast do I want it? I'll do a half a second. So it'll fade out really rather fast. I'm going to just make it a little bit so it fades out and everything is now synced with my movie. When I decided to edit my sound file, notice that the effect became custom. So you can manually play with your fade in and fade out, and you can adjust these boxes. And you can graphically see them appear. Hit OK, Control Enter. Do you hear it fading in and fading out? We don't want this loop. So the last thing I want to review with you is how to add a stop action. Now, I like to put my actions in its own layer. You could put the action by adding a keyframe at the end of your sound layer, or add it at any of these keyframes that exist. Good practice, insert a new layer. I'm going to call it my actions. Put all my actions in this layer. Go to the end of the movie. You don't want to add the action now, because you don't want it will jump on the first frame and then none of your animation will happen. We go to the end and add a keyframe. Now, you can hit F6 or F7 because you just want an empty keyframe, and this already is an empty keyframe. So either key, F6 or F7, will work to give you that keyframe. Do you remember the function key to hit to look at your actions? F9. So we've worked with F8. I've mentioned F6. We've done F6 a lot. Mentioned F7. Now we're at F9. F9 opens up our actions window. Change your actions to 1 and 2. If the timeline control isn't open from the last time we did it, go ahead and open up your timeline controls. And there's your stop. Double click on it. Done. So now, when I play my movie, Control Enter, and it stops and it fades out. You've worked with music, and you've now worked with all of the different types of animation. Don't forget the shape tween that we've done before. There are those videos that you can watch if you've forgotten. Good job.